On this episode of Game Shack, I'm going to show you guys how to drill out the holes for your buttons and also how to put in the bracing for the monitor for your virtual pinball build. All that and more coming up next. Hey everybody, welcome on back into the Game Shack. I'm your host, JDV. Thanks for stopping by. As you guys probably already know, this is the third in my set of series of videos on how to make your very own state-of-the-art 4K virtual pinball build. Check out those other two at the links up there. In this build, I'm going to show you guys what I use to drill out the holes for the buttons and what I did to put in this monitor so that it was at the right angle that I want it to and also give me enough room for my pinball glass. All of this stuff is relatively cheap and relatively easy to do. Just take your time and make sure that you get the buttons where you more or less want them. I based where I put my buttons both on the prior build that I did before and my real pinball games and my Ad Games legendary pinball games. So I'm just using all of those kind of things kind of help me figure out where I want to place the buttons. Anyway, you're going to see that in the video. And without further ado, here we go. Here you can see the front of the cabinet. I've already installed a piece of leftover scrap from the main body that was almost the perfect length and width for this. This is from front of the cab till back about 5 1/4 inches, which means this is about a 4 1/2 inch piece. Right here, this guy here is about 4 1/2 inches, and yep, sure enough, it's just a hair over 4 1/2, maybe 4 1/8. And so I just put in 2 screws here, 2 screws here, and a screw here, drilling pilot holes for each screw because Pine does want to split. So I'll show you exactly how I do it by putting in the exact same piece back there. And again, this is just the width of the cab on the interior plus about 4 1/2 inches to give us about 5 inches here. And I'm going to have a button here. It'll be this, side buttons here, but I'm going to have an action button up here. And so 5 inches total seemed about right to me. But now before we can actually put in the back box, I have to know exactly where up on the cabinet the TV is going to be. We know where the TV is going to start. It's going to start almost exactly at the end of this because it's almost a bezel-less TV. So we got to measure exactly how tall the TV is to figure out exactly where this back box should start. I've been going with on this design a yardstick plus a thumb. All right, so I have to measure it exactly to know exactly how much further up here I have to go, but I have a feeling this is going to have to come back about 1 inch. Okay, so this is the set I'm going to use. It's an LG OLED C2 monitor. It's the 42-inch variety. So a thing to note right now is that this is going to be the strongest place on any of your TVs because this is where it would normally mount to the wall. And on this particular set, the LG C2, it's about 12 inches in on either side, and they are about a foot apart. So 12 inches in, about a foot apart. So in other words, I'm going to put my wooden braces somewhere in here in the cabinet, and that's how this is going to sit. But before we do that, we got to put in that back box, and to do that, we need to know exactly how long the TV is. This one is 36 3/4 inches long. So now one thing about this, I'm not gluing down either side until I'm 100% sure. So right now they're just going to be held in by screws. So this looks and feels about right to me. So don't worry if it doesn't go all the way to the end. We can always stick another piece in here, but the reality is there's going to be an entire back box that sits right on top of this, so you're never going to see this gap. And you kind of want to have a little bit of a gap back here so airflow can get underneath to this OLED TV, which is going to produce some heat. Now in this design, I do not have the computer in the back box, which would make even more heat, so I don't have to go too crazy with ventilation, but having it be here, because right here is where the screen is going to end, it'll make it like a nice little chimney, I think, for hot air to come up. Pull that out. Go ahead and put another one here. And then what I'm going to go ahead and do is I will put in the screws now. Then I'll drill 2 pilot holes on the other side. I'll put in all 4 screws and it will be done. Now I could put glue on it later. I don't know that I'm going to. I'm certainly not going to do it now, just in case I have to take this all apart. and that's pretty good. I'm going to put another one in here. Again, the back box is going to completely cover this, more than likely, so I'm not too worried if it looks beautiful or anything. It just needs to get in there, add some support, and we'll be able to put our temporary back box on top of here so we can, you know, do things like wire it up. As soon as you hit, just go ahead and pull out. Same thing here. Just eyeballing it. Okay, so if you notice, I have two lines drawn. And so this is the top of the cab. I just measured using the angle I just arbitrarily chose, just an angle that looked good. I just came down this far, figuring I wanted this much space, which is gonna be about 2.5 inches if I remember correctly. Let's see. Yep, 2 inches. So this line here is 2 inches down from the very top of the cabinet. And what that does is it gives you space between the glass that you're going to put on and the monitor. So as it turns out, my TV is almost exactly as wide as this 1x2 stock. So what I just did after I had that first line in is I just lined up the TV at the angle, again following the natural line of the cabinet, and I drew another line, and this line here, or this layer, essentially represents the television itself. So the television is going to be sitting here, and this gives me an idea just about how wide my TV is. Now your monitor could be different, your TV could be absolutely different, so this is a pretty thin model right here. Right, so there. And so what I'm doing with this piece here, I'm going to use two pieces, right? This one. And what I'm going to do is essentially I'm going to mount these two pieces on rails on either side of the cab, and this is where the main TV is going to sit, and it's going to sit on those screws I showed you earlier because that's where they would actually mount into the wall. So you're kind of faking the bracket that you would put on the wall by using these slats of wood. And move it out of the way. Let's go ahead and screw it in. So now I just need to go ahead and finish this off, screw this piece in, and then now I'm ready to lay in the other side. Okay, so there you can see I pulled out the screw that poked out this side. You can still see it here. So you pull it back out and then just go ahead and pull it back out, and then you know exactly where you need to go. Put it in.
Something, girl. It's fine.
Don't. And there you go. So again, using that 1x2 stock, I've already got two screws started. I'm going to put it just about where I think I'm going to need it to be. Put in this piece of wood here on that side. Now I'm just going to line it up with that bottom of the line that we talked about. Using this brown piece of wood here, trying to get it as flush to this and as even to this line as I can get. Pull it out when you're nice and happy with it. And finish driving the screw. Careful not to drill in your own leg, which can happen. Is move this thing up, and same thing, line it up with that line, squeezing this brown piece tight. Go ahead and pull it out when you're happy. Okay, so these are the rails that my little pieces are going to sit on. It really is just that simple. So you could lay a whole piece of wood here if you wanted to. I'm just, again, I want there to be as much airflow around the TV as possible, so I am just going to use slats, but hey, you can use whatever you want. So again, you're going to want to go ahead and pull out the screws and then redrive them from the other side. Let's go ahead and do that now. Yeah, so here are the 2 slats we put in. First one. Okay, good. Let's see here. And this one goes like so. So using these 2 slats, TV is going to sit on here. If I need to go ahead and move this up or down, I could go ahead and lower these. It's no big deal. But I think this is going to give me a nice, slightly tilted screen. It'll lay on here. I'm putting a lot of my own weight, way more than that 20-pound TV would put on here. And it's holding with only 2 screws on each side. So what I'm going to go ahead is trim up these screws, basically just hitting them with this wrench. And then I'm done with this part. Then I could go ahead and start putting on the end cap sort of bumper bar thing. Next up, I'm going to put these 2 by 2 inch end caps on either end, and that is going to serve as the palm rest in this particular build. It will also cover up a little bit of the screws. Now hopefully the artwork I get will go underneath this. Obviously the paint job would. So I'm going to try to get that real tight and go ahead and nail these things down. And the reason why I'm going to take the time to do that now is because a lot of where I'm going to end up putting my fingers is going to rely on where I put my palm. I won't really know where that is until I have the palm guards on. So I'm going to go ahead and install these guys here. Links down below per usual. So I'm using the same wood screws that I used to finish off the leg brace for the pinball legs. And I'm using these little screws now to screw down into the end caps that we're going to use basically as palm rests. So let's go ahead and check that out. And don't be afraid to push the metal, to bend it to a little bit more how you want to go. It's okay to do that, even if you have to use a hammer or whatever. Get it to how you really want it to be. I'm just kind of using old man strength here. I kind of think that's where I want this screw to go. I know I might end up finishing it off with nails instead of screws, just because you can't completely hide a screw. But I don't know. We'll see. Starting to look a little bit more like a proper pinball cab as you start adding all this stuff in. All right, not too bad. This is the best solution as opposed to getting a whole bar here, because getting one that's actually going to exactly fit your dimensions of your machine. There wasn't one that actually fit this one perfectly, and they're over $100 for a lot of them. This was $15 and does the exact same thing, although it might not look as cool. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is go ahead and add that one. Right, again, pushing it down, getting it to conform, because this is not quite all the right angle because it's coming in at an angle, but this metal is thin enough that if you push on it, it really will kind of conform. And then kind of push down with the screw, kind of mark where that's going to go. Now it's true we will have to take all of this off, the little end caps and the legs, to put on the graphics and or paint whatever route you go, or even stain if you just like the way the wood looks. All right, there we go. I'm going to go ahead and finish this off. Okay, I think you can see there that this cab is really starting to come together now. I have all of the little screws and the end plates that hold the pinball legs. I now have the essentially what is acting as our lockdown bar, our palm rest installed. I have this front plate here that our little special button is going to go. I've got slots or slats laid in for the TV to lay on, and I have an estimation to where our backboard is going to be, and it's going to sit right on top of here. All of it seems very stout. All of it seems like it's just as secure as you'd want it to be. Really now the next step in this build is going to be putting in the holes, and I'm going to start right on the top here with that one. So I have this big large button that I'm going to put right there as my special button. I'm also going to use a button like this as my plunger, as I just don't feel like messing with an actual plunger, so this will actually act as, I actually have 6 of these, but I'm going to install 2, one on top and one on the side. And now the purpose of this particular button, there are a few games that have specials, actually quite a few, including a really good version of Star Trek when you have to select your mission by hitting this and fight Klingons and stuff. So it's just something, you can assign this to start the game, you can even assign this to be your plunger or whatever. But I kind of think that the big red in-your-face button right there is going to look good. So while I'm here getting ready to drill the first thing, let me show you what I'm using. This is the 1 1/8 inch Ivy Classic. I got this for about, I think, $12, something like this. But this is supposed to be exactly what you want to have to drill out arcade holes or arcade button holes. And so I'll have a link down below. So this is actually the first time I'm going to be using this particular product. So I hope it does better than the paddle drill bits that I've been using before, which always end up making a huge mess. Let's just see how this works. So here's a close-up of that bit. It's very... that will chop right through pine, and I'm sure MDF, but it'll just absolutely eat through this pine, no question about it. I'm going to put a small wooden piece of scrap, right? I'm going to put this on the underneath of this, right? So when I drill through here, it'll go into here and help kind of prevent the wood from fraying and getting all over the place. All right, so let me move back to this side. Now, you could eyeball it. In fact, there's some sterns where it's off center. So, I mean, it really does. You could put it here if you thought that was more convenient, or you could put a line of them in. You can do whatever you want. You could leave nothing. You could put, put a joystick up here. I just like the big red button as the idea. So I'm just going to get an idea again how wide this is. So this is 22 3/4. So figure 11. That's a little bit more than 11 inches in. Maybe 11. Scooch here is about where we, where we want to be. Okay, so that looks good enough. Okay, so now I know where I'm going to put it. I mean, it's so sharp you can see where it's going to go, right? Okay, so go ahead and put it. Again, putting a board underneath it. Doing well so far. I'm going to increase the speed of the drill bit. Just a wee bit more to go. All right. So these two little nubs that you either can cut off, or I'm going to go ahead and push down on them. Here's the little backing. All right, so now comes a time when you need to place the actual mainline buttons. So I like to have the button be pretty much right there, and then I have a little diagonal, the nudge. So if I put the main button kind of X mark the spot, I'm going to guess that that is about 4 to 4.5 inches from the front, because that seems to be where the buttons are on all the other pinball machines that I have, is about 4.5. So here's my little mark, and we are, look at that, we are exactly 4 inches. Where are you? Exactly 4 inches from the end to there. Okay, so that seems a bit right. Of course, the button is going to give you a little bit of leeway because the buttons are about 1.5 inches apart or across. So again, slow and steady. Very nice. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put in the button so I can figure out where to put the nudge, but I'm going to guess the nudge is going to go right here, here, somewhere in there is where the nudge button is going to go. So that's about right. That is about how it should be, is right with that. So you could use this finger if you want to, even this third finger. Basically here, that feels right, and so that would be the, for me, I like to have the nudge kind of at an angle here, so not here. That's where it is on the Alp, is off to here, which works, but I think the more natural inclination is to shift down. So I'll end up putting it right here. So let me get another button out so I can measure that up and get a rough estimation, and then there we'll go. Okay. Again, it helps to have these pieces on here to help you really size up where the button should go. All right, now to do it on the other side. Same thing, a place where I think the hole should go. And just so you don't accidentally go into that backing plate, I go ahead and just get in here. All right, so you're just above it. So that way you don't have any real problems. Try to come out on the other side. This will go through. See, so it doesn't hit that. And your nut. There you go. So I may or may not keep this just because I have two big red things here, but I don't know. It might look fine. But that to me seems about right. You want to be able to reach down while you're playing it to launch the ball so it's not too troublesome. So right in here actually seems to be about the best area for it. Has nice kind of feng shui here. All right. Okay, there you go. That's gonna do. And here you can see the final placement of the buttons on this build. You can see I added a joystick. I'll get into that in the next episode, but everything else is pretty much exactly where I want it to be. Now in later episodes, I'm going to show you guys how to map this all out so that these buttons actually do what you want. In this build, I have this being my primary flipper button. That's my nudge. That of course is the add credits. That's to start, and that's the escape button to go back to the main menu. This is the special button that you can use as both a forward nudge and any kind of game that has a magna save or special. And that is my plunger. And just the same thing over here. The red is my main flipper and the blue is the nudge. All right, in the next episode, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna prep this machine for the decal. So I'll spray paint everything. I'll go ahead and show you guys how to wire this up, what I do to wire everything, and basically get it all ready for the very last step, which is putting in the back box. Okay, I hope that you guys have enjoyed this content so far. If you have, please give me a thumbs up. It really does help the channel, help other people see this type of content. If you are interested in virtual pinball, check out a new video I have up there telling you 5 reasons why virtual pinball is the way of the future and real pinball, so to speak, is not. All right, love each other, and until next time, I'll see you guys in the Game Shack. Mwah!
Be sure to visit evilgeniusentertainment.com for exclusive content, swag, casting call news, and much, much more.